My name is Rosabelle, and I'm 32 years old. 4 years ago, I married the man I thought was my soulmate. We built a life together, a home together, and I believed in us completely. But one morning, after returning from a long business trip, I woke up in my own bed, next to a man who looked exactly like my husband, but wasn't him. And what unraveled after that moment changed everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and the person sleeping beside me. Before I tell you what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how one shocking morning unraveled everything I thought I knew. Trust me, you won't see this coming. Let me take you back to how it all started. I met Blake Cunningham 5 years ago at an art gallery opening in Portland, Oregon. I was there for work, researching sustainable design elements for a project, and he was there because he genuinely loved contemporary art. We started talking in front of a massive abstract piece, debating whether the chaos on the canvas was intentional brilliance or accidental mess. He made me laugh. That was the first thing I loved about him. Blake worked in real estate investment. He was handsome in that effortless way some men are, with dark hair that always looked slightly wind-touched and green eyes that crinkled when he smiled. I was a sustainable housing architect, specializing in eco-friendly residential design. We came from different worlds, but somehow we fit. Our courtship was like something out of a romantic movie. Weekend hikes in the Columbia River Gorge, late-night conversations over wine on his apartment balcony. He proposed on a rainy Tuesday evening in our favorite bookstore, getting down on one knee between the poetry and philosophy sections. I said yes without hesitation. We got married in a small ceremony at a vineyard in Willamette Valley. It wasn't huge or flashy, just our closest friends and family. We bought a charming craftsman-style house in the Hawthorne neighborhood, painted the kitchen yellow, because I loved how sunshine looked on the walls, and adopted 2 rescue cats named Fitzgerald and Hemingway. Life was good. Not perfect, but good. We had our routines: Sunday morning farmers market runs, Thursday night cooking experiments that sometimes ended in ordering pizza. We talked about having children. We'd been trying for about 3 years, tracking cycles and timing everything perfectly, but nothing had happened yet. We were considering IVF, and I could see the strain it put on Blake. He wanted to be a father so badly. Then 2 months before everything fell apart, I received the opportunity of a lifetime. A major development firm in Boston wanted me to lead the design for a large-scale, affordable housing project. It was everything I'd worked toward, a chance to create sustainable, beautiful homes for families who needed them most. The catch was I had to be in Boston for 8 weeks straight, overseeing every phase of construction and design implementation. Blake encouraged me to go. He held my hands across our kitchen table and said, "Rose, this is your dream project. I'll be fine. We'll video call every night. 8 weeks will fly by." I was hesitant. We'd never been apart for more than a week in our entire relationship. But he was so supportive, so understanding. I kissed him, thanked him, and booked my flight. The first week in Boston was lonely. I stayed in a small corporate apartment near the construction site, spending 12-hour days reviewing blueprints and coordinating with contractors. But every evening at 7 o'clock Pacific time, Blake's face would appear on my laptop screen. He'd tell me about his day, ask about mine, make jokes about how Fitzgerald kept sleeping on my side of the bed. Those calls were my anchor. By the second week, I noticed something shifting. Blake looked tired. He said he was working late on a new investment project, that it was stressful but would be worth it. Our calls became shorter. Sometimes he'd cancel last-minute texting that he had an emergency meeting or was too exhausted. I told myself it was normal. We were both stressed. I was managing a massive project. He was handling his work alone while missing me. Of course we'd struggle a bit. Week 5 brought a bigger change. Blake called one evening and said his phone's microphone had stopped working. From then on, we could only text. I offered to buy him a new phone and have it shipped overnight, but he said he'd ordered one already and it would arrive in a few days. Those few days turned into weeks. We texted every day, sweet messages and mundane updates, but I missed seeing his face. I missed hearing his voice. Looking back, I should have questioned it more, but I was drowning in work, barely sleeping 4 hours a night, and I wanted to trust him. Marriage is built on trust, right? By week 7, I'd pushed my team so hard that we finished the core design phase a full week early. The construction could continue without me there daily. I was free to go home. I decided not to tell Blake. Our 5-year anniversary of the day we first met was coming up that Friday, and I wanted to surprise him. I booked a red-eye flight out of Boston on Friday night, barely containing my excitement. I imagined walking through our front door, seeing his face light up, falling into his arms. I packed quickly, said goodbye to my team, and headed to the airport with a heart full of anticipation. The flight landed at Portland International at 10:15 in the evening. I grabbed my suitcase from baggage claim and practically ran to the rental car counter. The drive home took 45 minutes through light traffic, and with every mile my excitement grew. I'd been away for almost 8 weeks. I missed my husband. I missed my house. I missed our life. I pulled into our driveway at 11:45. The house was completely dark. No porch light, no glow from the living room windows. Blake must have gone to bed early. I smiled, thinking about slipping into bed beside him, waking him up with a kiss. I used my key to unlock the front door, turning it slowly to avoid making noise. The familiar smell of our home washed over me. That specific combination of the lavender sachets I kept in closets and the faint coffee aroma that never quite left the kitchen. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it. The throw pillows on the couch were arranged the way I always kept them. My favourite coffee mug sat in the dish rack. But as I set my suitcase down in the entryway, I noticed something, a pair of men's sneakers by the door that I'd never seen before. They were size 11, which was Blake's size, but the brand was different. He usually wore Nike. These were New Balance, scuffed and worn. I told myself he must have bought new running shoes. Blake was always trying new brands for his morning jogs. I tiptoed up the stairs, my heart beating fast with anticipation. Our bedroom door was halfway open. I could hear steady breathing from inside, the deep rhythm of someone in a sound sleep. I peeked around the doorframe and saw a figure in our bed lying on his side, facing away from the door. The broad shoulders, the height, the dark hair visible above the blanket. It had to be Blake. I went into the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and took a quick shower to wash off the airplane feeling. As I dried off, I noticed the cologne on the counter. Blake always used Acqua di Gio. This bottle was different, a woodsy scent I didn't recognise. Maybe he'd switched brands while I was gone. Exhausted from travel and the long weeks of work, I just wanted to be close to my husband. I slipped into one of Blake's old t-shirts that I'd left in the bathroom hamper, turned off the light, and quietly made my way to the bed. I lifted the covers and slid in beside him, my body naturally curving against his back. He was warm, solid, familiar. I wrapped my arm around his waist and pressed my face between his shoulder blades. He smelled different, but I was too tired to think about it. Within minutes, I drifted into the deepest sleep I'd had in weeks. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the gap in our curtains. I woke slowly, that comfortable half-awake state where you're not quite ready to open your eyes. I was still curled against Blake's back, and I smiled thinking about how wonderful it would be when he woke up and realised I was home. I stretched, yawned, and rolled onto my back. Then I turned my head to look at him, ready to see his sleeping face, maybe wake him with a gentle kiss. The man lying beside me was facing the ceiling now, and the morning light illuminated his features clearly. My heart stopped. There was a scar, a long, raised scar running from just below his right ear down to his chin. Blake didn't have a scar there. I would have known. I'd kissed that face 1,000 times. And his beard. This man's beard was thicker, grown out more than Blake ever let his get. His hair was slightly longer too, touching his collar in the back. I sat up so fast the bed shook. My breath came in short gasps. This wasn't Blake. This wasn't my husband. The man's eyes flew open. He looked startled, blinking against the sunlight. Then he saw me, and his expression shifted to confusion. "Rose," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "You're back early." The voice was so close to Blake's, almost identical. But there was something in the tone, a slight difference in pitch, that my brain registered even through my panic. I scrambled backward until I hit the headboard. "Who are you?" My voice came out as a whisper. "What did you do to Blake?" The man sat up quickly, raising both hands in a calming gesture. "Whoa, calm down. It's me. It's Blake." I shook my head violently. No, you're not. "Where is my husband?" He swung his legs out of bed, standing up. He was wearing Blake's pajama pants, the navy blue ones with the small anchors that I'd bought him last Christmas. "Rose, please, I can explain." "Explain?" I jumped out of the bed on the opposite side, putting the mattress between us. "You're in my house, in my bed, pretending to be my husband. I'm calling the police." I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. "Wait," the man said, his voice urgent. "Just wait. My name is Hunter. Hunter Cunningham. I'm Blake's identical twin brother." The words didn't make sense. I stared at him, my thumb hovering over the emergency call button. Twin Blake doesn't have a twin. He never mentioned a brother. Hunter's shoulders sagged. He looked down at his feet, and when he looked back up, there was something sad in his eyes. "I know. It's complicated. We were separated when we were 5 years old." "That's impossible." "Our parents divorced when we were really young," Hunter said, speaking quickly. "It was a bitter separation, the kind where lawyers get involved and people say terrible things. My mum took Blake and moved to Oregon. My dad took me, and we ended up in Nevada. They each wanted to start fresh, completely fresh, so they just stopped talking about the other twin. We grew up not knowing the other existed. I wanted to believe this was some kind of nightmare, that I'd wake up and Blake would be there laughing at me for having such a bizarre dream. But the sunlight was real. The man in front of me was real, and something in his story had the uncomfortable ring of truth. "How did you find each other?" I asked, still keeping the bed between us. "DNA registry. 3 years ago, I did one of those ancestry tests for fun. Blake showed up as a match. Close relative. I contacted him and we figured it out from there." Why wouldn't he tell me something like that? Finding a twin brother is huge. Hunter's expression darkened. "Because of what I'm about to tell you. Rose, I'm so sorry. Blake is dead." The room tilted. I grabbed the dresser to steady myself. "What?" "He died 6 weeks ago. Car accident on Highway 26. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. "That's not possible. I texted him yesterday. He responded. He said he was excited for me to come home soon." Hunter's face crumpled with guilt. "That was me. I've been texting you. I'm so sorry." My legs gave out and I sank to the floor. The phone fell from my hand. "You're lying. This is insane." "Why would you do this?" Hunter walked around the bed slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. He sat on the floor about 6 feet away from me, giving me space. "Blake made me promise to protect you. There are things you don't know. Dangerous things." "Show me proof," I demanded. "Show me proof he's dead or I'm calling the police right now." Hunter stood up and left the room. I heard him going downstairs, opening and closing a drawer. He came back carrying a manila envelope. He handed it to me and backed away. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a death certificate. Blake Andrew Cunningham, deceased 6 weeks ago. Cause of death, blunt force trauma from motor vehicle accident. I read it 3 times, my eyes refusing to accept what they were seeing. There was also a police report. Details about a single car accident. Blake's sedan had hit a utility pole at high speed on a rural stretch of Highway 26 around 2 in the morning. The officer noted signs suggesting the driver had fallen asleep at the wheel, and there was a letter. handwritten in Blake's distinctive scrawl that I knew as well as my own. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Rose, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. I need you to know that everything I'm about to tell you I did because I love you, even though I know you'll hate me for it. I made mistakes, terrible financial mistakes. I got involved in some risky investments, and I lost everything. Not just our savings, but I borrowed money from people you don't borrow from. Dangerous people. I owe nearly $500,000 and they've made it clear what happens if I don't pay. I asked Hunter to help me, to protect you while I tried to fix this mess. If something happens to me, please let him help you. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to tell you the truth. I love you, always. Blake. I sat on that bedroom floor for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The letter crumpled in my fist, tears streaming down my face. Hunter sat quietly across from me, not speaking, just letting me process. When I finally found my voice, it came out broken. I wasn't here. I didn't get to say goodbye. I was in Boston working on a stupid building while my husband died. It's not your fault, Hunter said softly. Blake specifically didn't want you to know. He made me promise not to tell you until he'd sorted everything out. I looked up at him through blurry vision. How much of the debt have you paid? About $300,000. I sold Blake's car right after the accident. There were some investment accounts he'd kept separate, and I liquidated those. I've been working double shifts at my construction job, putting every penny toward the balance. Construction. I'm a contractor. Commercial buildings mostly. The pay is decent when you work 80-hour weeks. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, and the loan sharks, they just let you pay it off slowly. Hunter shifted uncomfortably. Not exactly. I convinced them that Blake had a life insurance policy that would pay out, but it was taking time to process. I've been making regular payments to keep them from getting impatient. How long have you been living here? Since 2 days after the accident. Blake had already told them about the house. They came looking for payment. I showed up, told them I was Blake, that my wife was out of town and I needed time. It was the only way to keep you safe. I struggled to my feet, my legs unsteady. I need some air. I need to think. Of course, I'll pack my things and go. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Not yet. I need answers first. Real answers. About Blake, about the money, about all of it. Hunter nodded. Whatever you need. I went downstairs, put on coffee with shaking hands, and sat at the kitchen table. Our kitchen table where Blake and I had eaten hundreds of meals together, where we'd planned our future. Where he'd apparently kept massive secrets from me. Hunter came down a few minutes later, fully dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. He poured 2 mugs of coffee and sat across from me, maintaining that careful distance. Tell me about the accident, I said. Hunter's jaw tightened. The police said he was driving home late from a meeting, lost control on a curve and hit a pole. He died on impact. What kind of meeting at 2 a.m? I don't know. The police didn't have details. Something about this didn't sit right. Blake was never out that late. He was in bed by 10 most nights. Where was he coming from? The police report just said Highway 26 near the mountain pass. I sipped my coffee, my mind racing. You said you've been texting me as Blake. How did you know what to say? How to sound like him? He left me his phone. There were months of conversations between you two. I read them to understand how he talked to you. And honestly, Rose, we're identical twins. We think alike, talk alike. It wasn't that hard. Except you're not identical. You have a scar. Your hair is longer. Your beard. The scar happened when I was 15. Dirt bike accident. As for the hair and beard, I've been cutting them to match his style since I got here. I guess I let it grow out a bit in the last couple weeks. I set down my coffee mug. I want to see the house. Show me if anything changed. We walked through each room together. The living room looked normal. Same furniture, same books on the shelves. In Blake's home office, everything was neat and organized, just like he always kept it. But when I opened the closet, I found boxes I didn't recognize. What are these? I asked, pulling one down. Hunter looked uncomfortable. Those are mine. My clothes, some personal things. I had to bring some of my stuff when I moved in. I kept them hidden in case you came back unexpectedly. I opened the box. Men's clothes, larger sizes than Blake wore. A photograph of two young boys, maybe 4 or 5 years old, standing side by side. They looked identical. "Is this you and Blake?" Hunter took the photo gently. "Yeah, this was taken a few months before the divorce. We were inseparable back then." Looking at those two little boys, my heart ached. They had no idea they were about to be ripped apart to grow up as strangers. We continued through the house. In the garage, I found Blake's car was indeed gone. In its place was an old pickup truck. "That's mine," Hunter said. "I needed transportation." Everything he said made sense, but something nagged at me, a feeling I couldn't name. "I need time alone. Can you give me a few hours?" "Of course. I'll go get some groceries, run some errands. Take all the time you need." After Hunter left, I sat in Blake's office, staring at his computer. He'd always been protective of it, said it had sensitive work files. I'd never had a reason to snoop before. Now I did. I tried his usual passwords. Our anniversary date. My birthday. Nothing worked. Then I tried something else. The date from the photo of the twins. It unlocked. His email loaded. I started scrolling through messages from the past few months, looking for anything about money problems or dangerous loans. But what I found instead made my blood run cold. There were dozens of emails from an address I didn't recognize. BC Operations. Sent to HC Secure. The messages were coded cautious, but the more I read, the clearer the picture became. "The plan is working. She suspects nothing. When she returns, stick to the story. Grief makes people vulnerable. The life insurance payout should cover most of it. Then we're free." My hands trembled as I clicked through message after message. These emails continued up until 3 days ago. Days after Blake was supposedly dead. I opened the most recent one. "She finished the Boston project early. Expect her home this weekend. Be ready. Maintain the cover. Remember you're the grieving brother, I'm the dead husband. By this time next month we'll be in Mexico with the money." I stared at the screen, my entire body numb. Blake wasn't dead. This was all a lie, a con, and I'd walked right into it. I don't know how long I sat frozen in front of that computer screen. Time seemed to have stopped the moment I read those words. Mexico, the money, the con. My husband was alive. He'd faked his death, and his twin brother was helping him. But why? What money were they talking about? I forced myself to keep reading, clicking through older emails, piecing together the timeline. 6 months ago, there were messages about a perfect opportunity and she'll never see it coming. 4 months ago, detailed plans about how to stage a death, what paperwork would be needed, how to keep me in the dark. Then I found the file. It was attached to an email from 3 months ago, labelled simply Policy. I downloaded it, my cursor hovering over the icon before I clicked. Life insurance. Blake had taken out a massive life insurance policy on himself, $2 million, and I was listed as the beneficiary. My stomach lurched. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I could stand again, I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red-rimmed, my skin pale. I looked like a ghost. They were going to kill me, or make it look like I killed myself. Grief-stricken widow, unable to cope with her husband's sudden death. Once the insurance paid out, they'd disappear with the money. I had to get out. I had to call someone. The police, a lawyer, anyone. But first, I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I went back to the office and started taking screenshots of everything. The emails, the insurance policy, the planning documents. I forwarded them all to my personal email account, then deleted the sent messages from Blake's outbox. My phone buzzed. A text from Hunter. "Getting lunch while I'm out. Want anything?" I stared at the message. The casualness of it made me want to scream. Instead, I typed back, "No thanks. Take your time." I needed to talk to someone who'd known Blake, someone who could verify whether he was really dead. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at Garrett Sullivan's name, Blake's best friend since college. They'd been close playing basketball every Tuesday night at the gym. I called him, praying he'd answer. "Rose?" Garrett's voice came through surprised and warm. "Hey, you're back from Boston. Blake mentioned you were coming home soon. Is he around?" My heart nearly stopped. "What did you say? Is Blake there?" "I was going to ask if you guys wanted to grab dinner this week, catch up." "Garrett, when was the last time you saw Blake?" About 3 weeks ago at the gym. Tuesday night hoops like always. Why is everything okay?" 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks after Blake was supposedly dead in a car accident. "Rose, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I couldn't tell him over the phone. Not yet. "Can you meet me right now? It's important." "Of course. Where?" We agreed on a coffee shop near his office in downtown Portland. I grabbed my purse, made sure I had my phone and wallet, and headed out the door. I left a note for Hunter saying I needed to run some errands and clear my head. The drive downtown gave me time to think. If Blake was alive, where was he? The emails mentioned Mexico, but he couldn't be there already if Garrett saw him 3 weeks ago. Was he hiding somewhere in Portland, watching me? I parked and practically ran into the coffee shop. Garrett was already there, sitting at a corner table, concern written all over his face. "Rose, what's happening?" he asked as I sat down. I pulled out my phone and showed him the death certificate Hunter had given me. "Have you seen this?" Garrett's eyes widened as he read it. Then he looked up at me, confused. "This says Blake died 6 weeks ago, but I just saw him. I talked to him. We discussed the Trailblazers' playoff chances." "Are you absolutely certain it was Blake?" "Of course I am. We've been friends for 10 years. I think I'd know." He looked at the death certificate again, studying it. "Wait, this seal looks weird. See how it's off-center and the signature here is too light." "Rose, I think this is fake." "There's more." I showed him screenshots of the emails, the insurance policy, everything. Garrett's face went from confused to horrified as he read. When he finished, he looked up at me with fury in his eyes. "That son of a bitch, he's trying to kill you for insurance money." "Not kill me directly, I don't think. Make it look like suicide, maybe, or an accident. We need to call the police right now and tell them that my husband faked his death, but is actually alive and planning to defraud an insurance company. We need more proof, real proof that he's alive." Garrett thought for a moment. "His car. The death certificate says he died in a car accident. If that's fake, his car should still exist somewhere. Hunter said he sold it. To who? There'd be a paper trail, title transfer, bill of sale, and if the accident never happened, there'd be no police report from that night." He was right. I pulled up the police report on my phone and looked at the details. Department badge number, incident number. "Can we verify this?" Garrett nodded. "I have a friend who works in the county records office. Give me an hour." While Garrett made calls, I sat in that coffee shop and tried to organize my thoughts. If Blake was alive and planning this elaborate con, he'd been planning it for months. All those nights, he seemed distant when I'd call from Boston. The broken phone microphone that conveniently meant we could only text. He hadn't been pulling away because of stress or because he missed me. He'd been setting up my murder and Hunter. Was he really Blake's twin, or was that a lie too? The childhood photo could have been faked. The resemblance could be coincidence or plastic surgery or no, they looked too similar. The twin story had to be true, which meant Blake had found his long-lost brother and recruited him into this scheme. Garrett came back to the table, his face grim. "The police report is fake. The incident number doesn't exist in the system. The badge number belongs to a retired officer who hasn't worked in 5 years. What about the death certificate? Also fake. There's no record of Blake Cunningham's death filed with the state." So it was true, all of it. Blake was alive, hiding somewhere, pulling the strings while his twin brother played house with me. "Rose, we need to involve the authorities now. This is fraud, conspiracy, maybe attempted murder. You're in danger." "I know, But I need to find Blake first. I need to look him in the eye and ask him why. That's crazy. He's dangerous. He's also my husband, and I deserve answers. Garrett wanted to come with me, but I convinced him to stay behind and document everything we'd found. I needed someone on the outside who knew the truth in case something happened to me. I drove back home, my mind racing with plans. Hunter would be back soon, and I needed to play this carefully. He couldn't know that I knew. When I walked in the door, Hunter was in the kitchen putting away groceries. He smiled when he saw me. "Feel better after your drive?" "A little," I lied. "Still processing everything." "I understand. It's a lot." He pulled out a container of soup. "I got your favourite from that place on Hawthorne. Tomato basil. Thought you might be hungry." The thoughtfulness of it made me sick. He was so good at this, so convincing. "Thanks," I managed. "I think I'll eat it later. I'm exhausted. I might take a nap." "Of course. I'll be down here if you need anything." I went upstairs to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the bed. My phone buzzed with a text from Garrett. "Found something. The life insurance policy was purchased 4 months ago through an online broker. Big red flag. Also, I tracked Blake's credit card. Last charge was 2 days ago at a gas station in Seaside." Seaside was a beach town about 90 minutes north of Portland. Was Blake hiding there or just passing through? I texted back, "Keep looking. I need to know where he is." For the next 3 days, I pretended everything was normal. I let Hunter take care of me play the grieving brother-in-law, all while Garrett worked behind the scenes, tracking Blake's movements. The credit card charges painted a picture. Gas stations along the coast, a hotel in Cannon Beach, restaurants in tourist areas. Blake was staying close, but not too close, probably checking in with Hunter regularly. Then Garrett found the real breakthrough. He booked a flight. Leaves Portland International next Tuesday. Destination Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Mexico, just like the email said. I had 4 days to figure out my next move. I could go to the police now, have them arrest both Blake and Hunter, but I wanted more. I wanted to understand why. How could the man I loved, the man I'd shared my life with, plan something so cruel? I decided to follow him to Mexico. I told Hunter I needed to go back to Boston for a few days to wrap up some final paperwork on the project. He seemed relieved, probably, thinking it gave him time to prepare for whatever came next. I booked a flight to Cabo for Monday, 1 day, before Blake's scheduled departure. If he was already there, I'd find him. If not, I'd be waiting when he arrived. Garrett thought I was insane. "Rose, please just let the police handle this." "I will. After I get answers. I promise." Monday morning, I kissed Hunter on the cheek before calling a cab to the airport. He bought the Boston story completely. The flight to Cabo took about 5 hours with a connection in Phoenix. I landed in the early afternoon, rented a car, and drove to the address I'd found in Blake's emails. A rental villa on the coast paid for 3 months in advance. The place was beautiful. White walls, terracotta roof, palm trees swaying in the breeze. Ocean views that probably cost thousands per week. Blake always did like the finer things. I parked down the street and watched the house. Around 4 o'clock, I saw movement inside. A woman came out onto the terrace. Blonde young, maybe 25. She was wearing a bikini and carrying a drink. My heart sank. Of course there was another woman. I waited until the sun started setting, then walked up to the front door. My hands were steady as I rang the bell. All the fear and confusion from the past few days had crystallized into something harder: anger, determination. The blonde woman answered. Up close, she was even younger than I'd thought. Pretty in a generic way, with too much makeup and expensive jewelry. "Can I help you?" she asked, with a slight accent. "European, maybe." "I'm looking for Blake Cunningham," I said. Her eyes widened slightly. "Who? Don't play games. I know he's here." She started to close the door, but I put my foot in the way. Tell him his wife wants to talk to him. Blake, she called back into the house. Someone's here. Footsteps. Then Blake appeared behind her, and the sight of him nearly knocked me over. He looked healthy, tanned, relaxed. Nothing like a man who'd supposedly died in a car accident 6 weeks ago. When he saw me, his face went white. Rose, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? I laughed, but it came out bitter. I could ask you the same thing, since you're supposed to be dead. He glanced at the blonde woman. Isla, give us a minute. She pouted, but went inside. Blake stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind him. How did you find me? Your emails, your credit card. You weren't as careful as you thought. He ran a hand through his hair, and I noticed he'd cut it shorter. Different style. Okay, look, I can explain. Please do. Explain to me how you faked your death, how you recruited your brother to impersonate you, how you took out a $2 million life insurance policy on yourself, with me as the beneficiary. Explain all of it, Blake. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. Can we sit? This is going to take a while. We sat on 2 chairs facing the ocean. The waves crashed against the shore, peaceful and relentless. Blake was quiet for a long moment before he started talking. I met Isla about a year ago at a real estate conference in San Diego. We started an affair. I know that makes me a terrible person. I justified it by telling myself that you and I had grown apart, that the spark was gone. But honestly, I was just selfish. I said nothing. Let him talk. About 6 months ago, I realized I wanted out of the marriage, but a divorce would cost me everything. Oregon is a community property state. You'd get half of everything I'd worked for, the house, the investments, the business assets. I couldn't accept that. So you decided to fake your death instead. Isla's family is wealthy. They own resorts down here. She said if I could get out of my marriage cleanly, we could start over together in Mexico. Build something new. And the life insurance, Blake had the grace to look ashamed. That was her idea, actually. She said if we were going to do this, we might as well profit from it. $2 million would set us up nicely. You were going to let me think you were dead, let me grieve, then what, stage my suicide so you could collect? No. He looked genuinely shocked. Rose, no, I would never hurt you. The plan was for Hunter to convince you to sign off on some financial documents, power of attorney type stuff. He'd say it was necessary to settle my estate. Once we had those signatures, we could access the insurance payout without anything happening to you. And I'd just never question why my supposedly dead husband's life insurance went missing. We were going to make it look like it went to pay off debts. You'd walk away with the house, some savings enough to be comfortable, and you'd be free to live your life without me holding you back from your career. The audacity of it. The sheer narcissism to think he was doing me a favor. What about Hunter? How does he fit into this? Blake's expression softened. Finding Hunter was the best thing that ever happened to me. We'd been apart our whole lives, and then suddenly I had this person who understood me completely, who looked like me, thought like me. When I told him about my situation, he wanted to help. He'd been struggling financially, working construction jobs that barely paid the bills. I offered him money, a lot of money, to help me disappear. So he just agreed to commit fraud. He was desperate, and he wanted a relationship with me, his only family. I convinced him it was victimless, that you'd be better off. I stood up, unable to sit anymore. Did it ever occur to you to just ask for a divorce like a normal person and lose everything I built, my reputation, half my assets? Blake shook his head. This way was cleaner. Cleaner. I repeated the word, tasting its bitterness. You call fraud conspiracy and breaking your brother's heart clean. What do you mean, Hunter? Do you know what he did for you? He sold his truck to help pay the fake debts he thought you had. He worked 80-hour weeks. He lived in our house, sleeping in our bed, texting me as you all because he thought he was protecting me from loan sharks. He actually cared about your well-being, and you were lying to him the whole time. For the first time, Blake looked uncomfortable. I told him what he needed to hear to make it work. You used him. just like you used me. Blake stood up, brushing sand off his pants. Look, Rose, I'm sorry it happened this way, but it's done now. You know the truth. What are you going to do about it? I pulled out my phone. I'm going to call the police, and I'm going to watch you explain all of this to a judge. His face hardened. You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine. I have the emails, the insurance policy, the fake death certificate. Hunter will testify once he knows what you really did, and I'm betting Isla won't be quite so loyal when she realizes she's facing fraud charges. Blake's confidence wavered. Rose, please, don't do this. Just walk away. Keep the house, I'll sign whatever you want. We can both move on. No, my voice was steel. You don't get to hurt people and just walk away. Actions have consequences, Blake. It's time you learned that. I dialed the number for the local police that I'd looked up before coming here. Blake lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. Touch me, and I'll add assault to the charges. He stopped, hands raised. You're making a mistake. No, I said as the operator answered. The mistake was thinking you could get away with this. The next few hours were a blur. Mexican police arrived, took statements, contacted their American counterparts. Blake was detained for questioning. Isla tried to claim she knew nothing, but her text messages told a different story. I flew back to Portland the next day. Garrett met me at the airport with a lawyer he'd contacted, a woman named Diana Fletcher, who specialized in fraud cases. Diana was sharp, mid-40s, with short grey hair and piercing blue eyes. She listened to my story, reviewed all the evidence I'd collected, and smiled. We've got him, she said simply. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of fraud I've seen. The fake death certificate alone is a felony. Add in the insurance fraud, the conspiracy, the forgery of your signature on financial documents, and Blake is looking at serious prison time. What about Hunter? That's trickier. He was clearly manipulated, but he still participated in fraud. However, if he cooperates fully, testifies against Blake, we can probably get him a plea deal. Probation, community service, restitution. I felt sick thinking about Hunter. He'd been a victim too in his own way. Blake had exploited his desire for family, his financial struggles, his loyalty. I want to talk to him, I said. Diana hesitated. Are you sure that's wise? I need him to know the truth. He deserves that much. We arranged for Hunter to come to Diana's office the next day. When he walked in, he looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes' shoulders slumped, the weight of guilt visible on his face. Rosabelle, he started, but I held up my hand. Let me talk first. I told him everything. Blake's affair with Isla, the fake death, the real plan behind the life insurance, how Blake had lied to him from the beginning. With each revelation, Hunter's face grew paler. When I finished, he put his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I thought I was helping. He said you'd be in danger. He said he was trying to protect you from his mistakes. He used you, just like he used me. Hunter looked up, tears streaming down his face. I should have known. All those nights in your house, reading your books, looking at your pictures, seeing the life you built together. I should have realized that someone who could walk away from that wasn't someone to trust. Will you testify? Diana asked. Tell the authorities everything Blake told you, everything he had you do. Yes. Hunter's voice was firm. Whatever you need, I'll make this right. The legal process took months. Blake fought extradition from Mexico, but eventually the evidence was too strong. He was brought back to Oregon to face charges. The trial was brutal. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the details of Blake's deception laid out in clinical legal language was like reliving the nightmare over and over. But I stayed strong. I testified clearly and calmly. Hunter did too, his voice shaking as he described how Blake had manipulated him. Isla was offered immunity in exchange for her testimony. She admitted that the entire plan had been her idea initially, that she'd seen Blake's marriage as an obstacle to be removed. She showed no remorse, only frustration that they'd been caught. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty on all counts. Blake was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for fraud, plus restitution of the full policy amount to the insurance company and forfeiture of all assets acquired during the marriage. The judge's words were scathing. You betrayed the trust of your wife, your brother, and society itself. Your selfish actions have caused immeasurable harm, and this sentence reflects the severity of your crimes. Hunter received probation and community service. The judge acknowledged that he'd been manipulated but held him accountable for his choices. After the sentencing, I saw Blake one last time. He was being led out in handcuffs, and our eyes met across the courtroom. I thought I'd feel satisfaction or victory. Instead, I just felt empty. This person I'd loved, who I'd planned a future with, was a stranger. Maybe he always had been. That was a year ago. Today, I'm sitting in my new loft apartment in the Pearl District, watching the sun set over Portland. I sold the Hawthorne house. Too many ghosts, too many memories of a life that turned out to be a lie. This new place is all mine. Clean lines, big windows, space to breathe. My career has taken off in ways I never imagined. The Boston Project won a national award for sustainable design. I've been promoted to senior architect, leading projects across the country. The work fulfills me in a way I'd forgotten was possible when I was so focused on being the perfect wife to an imperfect husband. I've started therapy, learning to trust again, to recognize red flags, to value myself. Dr. Martinez says I'm making good progress. Some days I believe her. I'm not dating yet. Maybe someday, but not now. For now, I'm learning to enjoy my own company. Rediscovering hobbies I'd abandoned, painting watercolours, taking long bike rides along the Willamette River, reading novels late into the night without feeling guilty about keeping someone awake. Hunter and I stay in touch, not often, but occasionally. He moved to Seattle after his probation ended, found a good job with a construction firm that specializes in green building. We email every few months short updates on our lives. He sent me a card on the anniversary of the trial with just 2 words, "Thank you." I understood what he meant. Thank you for giving him a chance to make things right. Thank you for not letting Blake destroy both of us. I heard Blake got out of prison early for good behavior 3 months ago. I don't know where he is now, and I don't care. That chapter of my life is closed. Sometimes I think about that morning when I woke up next to a stranger, how terrifying it was, how world-shattering. But in a strange way, it was also the beginning of my freedom. Blake had been a stranger all along. I just hadn't seen it. He'd worn a mask of the perfect husband, the supportive partner, while underneath he was calculating, selfish, willing to destroy lives for his own convenience. The real stranger wasn't the man I woke up next to that morning. It was the man I'd been sleeping beside for 4 years. I've learned so much since then. That love without honesty is just performance. That trust has to be earned, not assumed. That sometimes the worst betrayals come wrapped in familiar faces. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I knew. That I can survive the unthinkable and come out the other side. That my worth isn't defined by someone else's treatment of me. Would I have chosen this path if given the choice? No. The pain was real. The betrayal cut deep. The healing process is ongoing, but I wouldn't change who I've become. I'm Rosabelle, 33 years old now, architect, survivor, work in progress. And I'm finally learning to sleep peacefully in my own bed, knowing that the only person I'll wake up next to is the one I chose to be. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had that moment where you realized someone you thought you knew was actually a complete stranger? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about survival, betrayal, and finding yourself again. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes, knowing you're not alone in your experience makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that no matter how dark things get, you have the strength to find your way back to the light. Stay strong, trust yourself, and never be afraid to demand the truth even when it hurts.